I found myself once again in that unfamiliar armchair, with my arms outstretched as if gripping an imaginary steering wheel. Confusion and frustration overwhelmed me as I realized I was back in the living room of my uncle's house. I thought I had escaped, but I was once again trapped in this eerie place. Tears streamed down my face as I stood up and screamed, "How long have I been sitting here, lost in this madness?" The surreal smile on my face, the ceaseless arm movements, it all made no sense. I had been there, unresponsive to the world around me. Slowly, I became aware of the laptop on the dining room table. Its screen glowed ominously, as if mocking me. I approached it cautiously, wondering if it would reveal any answers. Words had already been typed, eerily proclaiming, "Lost your sanity? Great. Now you won't mind losing the rest." A sudden weight in my hand startled me. I raised it to find another kitchen knife, just like before. I dropped it immediately, fear and confusion coursing through me. It seemed that something sinister was manipulating my actions. As I erased the ominous message and attempted to write a plea for help, the atmosphere around me grew even more oppressive. Sinister shadows danced on the walls, indistinct whispers echoed in my ears. I was in a living nightmare. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. Total darkness surrounded me, and the air grew icy. I felt a malevolent presence drawing near. I tried to scream, but my voice was trapped in my throat. A wicked laughter echoed through the room. When the lights finally came back on, I was in a completely different place. I stood in a narrow hallway, with ancient portraits hanging on the walls. The eyes of the portraits followed me as I advanced, feeling as though I was being watched from all sides. A massive wooden door stood out at the end of the hallway. As I approached, I heard unintelligible whispers and shuffling footsteps. Fear intensified as the doorknob began to turn on its own. With my heart pounding uncontrollably, I entered the room beyond the door. It was an old, dusty chamber, furnished with covered furniture. A shadowy figure was seated in an armchair, facing away from me. It turned slowly, revealing a pale, empty face. Time seemed to freeze as our eyes met. I was paralyzed by terror, unable to move. The figure extended a skeletal arm towards me, and its laughter echoed in the room's emptiness. Darkness once again closed in around me, and I awoke in a new nightmare. With each step I took, the horrors of my uncle's house seemed to multiply. I was trapped in a labyrinth of terror, with no hope of escape. Whatever was happening, I knew I would have to confront my deepest fears to find a way out. As I wandered through dark corridors and sinister rooms, the terror continued to haunt me. I faced horrifying visions, unsettling shadows, and whispering voices that disturbed me. It was as if my uncle's house was alive and determined to engulf me in its never-ending nightmare. Each step led me deeper into the abyss of the unknown. My mind was clouded and disturbed, but I knew I had to press on, to find a way to break the sinister cycle that held me captive. Finally, I arrived in a room that was unlike any other. It was bathed in a dim, golden light, and at its center, there was a table covered with a dark cloth. With determination, I walked up to the table and lifted the cloth. Underneath it, I found an old, ornate mirror. My reflection stared back at me with eyes overflowing with despair. It was as if I were looking into my own tormented soul. Suddenly, the room began to shake, and the mirror vibrated. Without warning, the mirror absorbed my reflection, as if it were drawing in my very essence. I was pulled into the mirror, plunging into a whirlwind of distorted colors and distant images. It was a completely new, surreal, and terrifying world. However, as my vision stabilized, I realized I was no longer in my uncle's house. Instead, I was in a dark, but different place, as if I had entered a supernatural realm. Shadows writhed around me, but I was determined to find a way to escape this nightmare. I encountered a mysterious figure who told me that the only way to escape from that place was to confront my deepest fears. With reluctance, I delved into my memories and faced past traumas, reliving frightening experiences and dealing with my inner demons. As I confronted my fears, the shadows subsided and the surreal world began to crumble. Finally, I found myself back in the living room of my uncle's house, but this time without the horrors that had haunted me before. I breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that I had overcome the terrors that had imprisoned me. However, the house was in ruins, as if it had been abandoned for years. I left the house and found the daylight shining outside. My uncle's house had become a distant memory, a place of nightmares that I never wanted to revisit. I walked towards freedom, determined to leave behind the horrors I had experienced and grateful for finding the strength to confront my fears. As I walked away, I couldn't help but wonder if my uncle's house was truly a physical manifestation of my own fears and traumas. Regardless, I was free and determined to face the future with courage, knowing that I had overcome one of the most terrifying nightmares of my life.